Welcome back. I have a full week full of videos for you because, I kind of just disappeared for a hot second. If you follow me on Instagram or TikTok or you saw my YouTube short, I just get moments where I'm not giving myself enough time for all the things that I'm giving myself to do. Not that I can even give myself the time I would need for the amount of expectations I put on myself at times. I overload my schedule. So then when it comes to personal hobbies and passions, they either get cut out or if they take any work, I am so drained that I don't put forth the effort I need to, period. So for those who are newly subscribed, this isn't new. Every once in a while, I will probably disappear for a week or two and then I'll come back and I'll keep posting, and I apologize. I hope that you use that time to enjoy your other content creators or get out and enjoy the sun or whatever is in the sky where you're at. But because I have set us back enough times, I am going to pop out a video every day this week starting now till Saturday. That's 6 chapters we're getting through because my gosh, we are getting through this book one way or another. Not that it's hard to get through this book. I hope it's enjoyable for y'all, although I have read it a lot. And personally, I'm just really excited to be more interactive with my other content. So for those who want to follow along, there's a link to buy my book down below if you haven't already. And let's get to chapter 10. Wow. Double digits. Shelly, chapter 10. Eager. As she passed by the worn-out New York City people walking on the New York City streets, Deborah could not stop thinking about the odd conversation with her boss. During the rest of her work hours, she had filed the dialogue a few feet from her other thoughts and left it to gather dust. Incorrectly, she had assumed she could leave it there until she met with Arya later and could receive assistance in the dissection of Ted's intention. But as soon as her heels hit the concrete, her thoughts of that coffee line experience hit the headlines of her brain. For one, why did he tell the other people that he needed to cut in line to discuss an upcoming meeting with an employee? During the entirety of their discussion, he had never mentioned any meeting to Deborah, so either he meant to speak with someone else or there was no such meeting. What would she do if there was no meeting? What would that mean? A disgruntled noise erupted as Deborah huffed, making others turn their heads as they passed her. She didn't notice the attention. The reprimanding in her brain held her attention. She could not allow herself to wander into such fallacies. Of course, her informal speaking, laid back, or Deborah sometimes thought, slightly dim-witted, boss had a work-centered, work-focused purpose for his time spent in the line, even if there was no meeting. Once again, Deborah stored away the script of their conversation and made her way back home. With effort, she generated multiple thought-consuming tasks to do. Anything to avoid lingering on the discomfort from earlier. A few days' worth of dirty dishes were taken out of the dishwasher and hand-cleaned, an effort not often made in lieu of using the functional utility. After going down 7 flights of stairs, she threw the half-full trash into the dumpster outside one of the main floor hallways. After going up 7 flights of stairs, she did her online shopping, ordering new dresses and cardigans from large global corporations with free shipping and returns. After some desperation for more to do, Deborah even placed an order for groceries. When those arrived, her fridge would have close to 2 occupied shelves, far more food than she felt was necessary for a single lady. When she finished with the chores and pleasure spending, she spent the remainder of her time with her most reliable thought-delaying activity, watching Friends. Halfway through the show, her real-life friend Arya walked in, and Deborah paused the episode. Their topic of discussion would require full attention. Arya had never cared much for Friends, so it made no difference to her if it played or not. Deborah, however, never noticed her friend's disinterest, and even if she had, she wouldn't take the risk of missing any of her favorite scenes. Removing her flats at the door, Arya walked forward in a loose red blouse and mom jeans that, on her, looked stunning. This was the woman who would have the answers, Deborah thought. "Arya," Deborah cried. "Whoa, hey," Arya laughed. "How's it going?" "Not good." Deborah started with the basics, lamenting her goofy boss who treated their office like some suburbia. Everything she said gave her friend a synopsis of the man, but nothing touched upon their interactions from that day. It would not have taken any effort for her to dive into every single concern she had, but Deborah refrained. The story would have more impact if it included all the details of her day. She listed each event in her self-perceived, precise perspective, starting with a brief description of her disappointment in calling her daughter Shelly. Next, she teased her friend with a brief mention of the suitor she found on her dating app. Arya interjected. Wait, you actually came across a guy you think has potential? Hey, it's not bad to have standards. Smiling, Arya adjusted the bun on her head. Of course not, but this occurs less often. I want to know more. Has he messaged you? Well, Deborah's sight switched to the television. No, I messaged him. From past mini lessons Arya had taught on how to interact with single men, Deborah knew to generally wait for them to make the first move. Most women could approach a man, show interest first, and have success. But each time Deborah did it, she tended to lose sense in the excitement and overstep social boundaries. That always left her labeled improperly. Instead of eager, men thought her desperate. Oh no, Deborah thought. I hope I'm not desperate. Smacking her forehead, Deborah hid her paling face. Hey. Arya reached over and touched Deborah's shoulder. That's okay. If he is as promising as you say, he'll message back. You're a catch. Deborah scoffed. I'm almost 50. So, why would that change anything? Men don't want a woman with wrinkles and saggy breasts. Eventually, my available choices of suitable men will get further and further away until all I have left are losers or users. Arya's deep-set eyes bore into Deborah. Suddenly, the details of the woven fabric on the couch caught the attention of Deborah's fingers. The silent air condensed and became a thicker element. Honking horns, crashing cars, and hurrying humans muted as both friends became cemented in eye contact. Arya had stayed around long enough to understand why Deborah said self-demeaning remarks, but she still waited for her friend to voice her real insecurities behind the statements. Deborah said nothing. You shouldn't say those things, Arya said. They don't matter. You're beautiful regardless of age. Maybe not every man will see that, but many of the good ones will. A good man is hard to find, but not impossible. The encouragement didn't differ from anything Deborah had already heard or knew. You're beautiful just the way you are. There are good men out there. When you find the one, they'll love you for who you are. All these guiding words of advice didn't help her when she married her first husband. Apparently, he had loved her for who she was, at one point. Deborah thought that love seeped out of his system a few years after their marriage. No more dates, no compliments, the same anniversary gift bought annually as he made his way home from work. A dozen red roses. A part of Deborah thought that any gift deserved gratitude, but after years of no forethought on what to do for her, Deborah's appreciation for her husband lowered at the same rate he showed his love. Unshaken, Deborah lowered further down on the couch, half laying down as she said, Thank you for your concern, but we should move on to a different subject. I can't talk about this. I'm too stressed right now. Arya agreed. Did you want to talk about your boss? A recollection of the coffee line and the unusual interactions with Ted unpleasantly returned to her mind. The words of her story almost fell out of her overfilling mouth, but Deborah contained them. First, she needed to politely ask Arya about her family before she dominated the conversation. Deborah also wanted to catch up on her friend's life as well. She did the routine, asked the questions, listened, filled the time, watched the time, invested herself emotionally, etc. After Arya finished complaining about her daughter Lila's new hobby, stealing snacks after lights out, she talked about her husband Bill's new fascination with golf. He had never played it before, nor did he care to ever hold a club in his hands. Instead, every Saturday morning, Bill found a sports streaming platform and watched golf tournaments live. He watches these things as early as 7 in the morning. Arya bent her head forward. He never woke up that early on a Saturday to come on a run with me, but for golf he'll wake up. That's one different kind of hobby, Deborah said. I don't know how golfers could stand watching golf, let alone how Bill could. Arya laughed, the complexity seeming to give her more affection for him. I know. He never played it in high school. I'm not sure he's even held a golf ball before. We've never gone mini golfing or anything similar to it. You know I hate generalizations, but sometimes men can be so weird. Yes, men make no sense. Deborah pulled the pomegranate-shaded blanket off the side of the couch and wrapped herself in it. Holding out the bubblegum-shaded blanket to Arya, she said, Want one? 'Kay. Anyway, my boss approached me earlier today in line at the coffee stand, and he already talks far too casually for the workplace, but he usually doesn't do that with me, and the way it went was just weird. What happened? Arya said as she covered her legs in the blanket. First, Deborah explained her go-to for smoothies and why she needed to arrive early. Arya nodded, and Deborah continued. Then my boss arrived. At least 5 or 6 people were in line behind me, and he just cut in front of them. He told everyone he needed to talk to his employee about an urgent upcoming meeting. About that one flood case? Arya asked. She based her question on the many phone call complaints Deborah had made. I thought that would be it, but I never knew about any meeting, and he never brought it up the entire time we stood in line. What did he talk about then? He asked me what I've been up to lately. Deborah paused to watch for Arya's reaction, but her face stayed neutral. Okay. But not in a work sense. Like he wanted to know about my personal life, what I did on the weekend. Church, of course. Whenever a conversation opened up for Deborah to mention her religion, she did. While she found her personal life inappropriate for workplace chatter, she viewed church as the perfect medium. Not too casual, not too serious. If others didn't mind, and they ended up happier because of it, she counted it as a job well done. Without missing a beat, Deborah dove further into her narration of the event. But I also mentioned that I worked extra on the weekend, and he acted like I didn't need to. What boss doesn't want his employee to work for free? That's weird, right? I don't know. Not a lot of people work on the weekend without pay. I get your point, though. And he skipped ahead in line because he said he needed to discuss a meeting. Don't forget that. That's kind of sleazy, but I can't blame your boss. That line sounds like a nightmare. Grunting at her friend's misunderstanding, Deborah unfolded further details. I told him I played tennis, and he tried joking with me about my tennis opponents, and he mentioned Djokovic. Oh! Okay, I clearly can't say the name correctly, so sorry, readers. Does he play? I don't know. Deborah threw her blanket off her shoulders. Once we almost arrived at the front, he brought his face this close to me. She raised her hand 4 inches from her face and whispered that he had never been to the coffee shop. Then he asked me to tell me what the dirty secrets of the place were. Arya hummed, intrigued for the first time. I tried to order as quickly as possible and hide behind everyone waiting for their coffee. But Theodore saw me on his way out and told me we'd have to chat again. Soon. At the conclusion of Deborah's tale, Arya sat silent. She tended to think about her responses when Deborah became this desperate for advice. 10 seconds later, she stated, Most of that sounds pretty normal. The dirty secrets thing is off-putting, but that can also be a silly phrase people use. No, I don't think so. People don't say that. At least, I never heard of it. I think there must have been another reason he talked to me, aside from work. Used to Deborah's disagreements, Arya said, He asked about your personal life, made jokes. Did he ever bump you or make casual physical contact? Deborah thought back to it and remembered. His hand touched my shoulder when we first started talking, and he left it there. For almost half a minute. Well, a few seconds, but they felt long. It probably looked horrible. Could you imagine if people thought we were dating? I don't think you need to worry about that, especially if you looked as uncomfortable as you sound. But I don't know. Your boss might like you. Shadows must have appeared underneath Deborah's eyes as the dread spread. The fear she concealed had received confirmation. What if he asked me out? I'll have to say no, since he's my boss. And then he'll hate me and I'll get fired. I've worked so hard at having good relations at work. Things have never gone this well before. I don't want to find a new job. Deborah gasped. I don't want to move. Arya got up and went into the kitchen. I don't think you'll need to worry about all of that. If you don't want to go out and he fires you because of it, then just report him to HR. She opened a white cabinet drawer in the corner. Pulling out a bag of chocolate almonds, she said, Or Sue. Deborah tried not to roll her eyes, withholding an old habit she found unflattering. Unless he finds a different reason to get rid of me. It's not like I don't make mistakes. They're small mistakes that anyone can make, and I tell them right away, but people can still fire you for that stuff. Scooting back onto the couch, Arya wrapped her arm around Deborah's sunken shoulders. I think you'll be all right. Let me know if anything happens, and I'll find a way to help. Thanks. Everyone likes him. He's too friendly and funny. I think people find him charming or something. I don't know. I think he's silly, but not in a bad way, I suppose. Raising the bag of chocolates, Arya offered Deborah one before taking some herself. No thanks, Deborah said. Want to watch Friends? Transitioning a groan into a hum, Arya agreed. A few scenes into the episode, Deborah noticed a notification from the dating app and gasped. What? Arya said, scooting gently away with the bag. Like a giddy girl, Deborah shrieked. While pushing herself further away, Arya rubbed her eardrum. Perplexed, she pressed for an answer. Deborah. Looking directly at Arya, Deborah grinned greater than the Cheshire cat. He messaged me. Arya's eyes widened. Your boss? No, not Theodore, Deborah said. The guy from my dating app. Moving to catch a glimpse of the message, Arya said, How could I have known that? She shook her head and then recomposed herself. What's his name? Deborah opened and then closed her mouth. She checked the notification. Jack. She regathered her smile. Jack, that's a good name. What did he say? Want to see what he looks like? Even as she asked, she knew Arya cared little for the man's physical features. not only because of her commitment to Bill, but she had told Deborah that she thought appearances on apps were misleading and unreliable. Arya indulged Deborah this time and let her show the multiple photos of what Arya said was a man who needed to wear more sunscreen and use less teeth whitener. "He's cute, though," Arya said offhandedly. "This one actually takes care of himself. His bio said he likes to stay active." "So, what did he say?" Deborah opened the app to the message. "He said, Madison Square Park isn't too bad. How would you like to go out for dinner sometime? We can go on a walk at the park afterward." As Deborah started to shriek again, Arya stretched across the plush sheets and rushed her hand to Deborah's knee, signaling that she should stop. "Sorry," Deborah said sheepishly. "Don't worry about it. I can't believe he's already asked you out on a date." "I know." Deborah misinterpreted Arya's concern as the same excitement that bounded within her. "That's definitely bold of him. Not many men do that so soon." "I guess he's really interested in me. Isn't this great?" "Yes, but be careful. I'm not sold on this guy, especially with how readily he asked you out." "Well, it's not like I'm undateable." "Definitely not. If you go on the date, just stay in the public view, okay? And maybe don't go on a walk through the park at night." Arya dropped another chocolate-covered almond into her mouth. Deborah waved her hand. "I know. Trust me. I know what I'm doing." Messaging Jack back, Deborah said, "Dinner sounds delightful. Let me know when you are available, and I will check my calendar." Once the message delivered, Deborah added an afterthought. "Friday works best." Deborah spent the rest of the weekend dedicated to work as usual. She did not search for other jobs, but she did find new hiding spots each time Ted nearly crossed paths with her. The woman's bathroom became her most regulated hideout. Ted would not go in there, and if he did, that would confirm Deborah's paranoia that she needed to work somewhere else. On Friday, Deborah crept into the office and straightened up happily when she saw that Ted was not at his desk. If she didn't see him at his desk or hear him in the hallways, it usually meant she could safely proceed to her own workspace. After a few hours of peaceful filing and meeting with clients, Deborah went to the break room to fill up her water bottle. Around the corner, the receptionist talked about the upcoming weekend and mentioned the unbelievable amount of messages they had taken for Ted, since he was out of office for the day. Deborah's feet shuffled across the flat gray carpet. She landed in front of the receptionist's round desk, white, plastic, tacky. "Hey guys, Theodore's out of office?" They all paused. One woman's face shifted and she said, "Oh, Ted. Yeah, I think he had some meeting. Or, who knows, maybe it was a vacation day. Hard to remember that stuff." The young woman laughed at her forgetfulness. "Yeah." Deborah smiled and thought, hard to remember when it's your job to. The secretary looked about as old as her youngest, Shelly. 23, maybe 22 or 21, so she refrained from commenting on the error. "You'll get used to it." Releasing all her defenses, Deborah no longer checked corners as she walked back to her desk, assured that Ted would not disturb her the rest of the day. During lunch, she spent time planning what to wear for her date. A blouse wouldn't keep her warm enough, but that might turn around in her favor if Jack ended up placing his jacket on her cold shoulders. A tight, business casual dress would set the right mood for dinner, especially if they dined somewhere expensive. Either way, she needed to decide whether or not to wear a second layer. She texted Arya and then temporarily put the thoughts aside to call a client. Throughout the rest of her time at the agency, Deborah planned different aspects of the date. What lipstick to put on, how dark the shade of her brown eyeshadow should go, and what time she should message Jack to get confirmation that he could still go out. She did the last one after lunch. Jack replied after a few hours, sending the address of the restaurant. Eventually, Deborah relaxed into her black mesh chair, finding a rhythm for the work left to do. Reply to emails, set appointments, and investigate information from clients. Usually, she only accomplished her work so smoothly in her home. It brought her great pleasure that she could check off the task while still seated at her desk. The silence in the office helped profoundly, and she soon attributed her success to this. If Ted were there, she thought, workers would bustle around and make scores of noise, unless it was the weekend or the end of the day. Ted echoed in the center of the noise, constantly striking up conversations with others. She felt peaceful that not only had the majority of the day been quite quiet, but the past hour had exactly no noise. Deborah paused, her finger dangling over the mouse. She looked at the clock hidden in the corner of her desktop. It was nearly 6. She had told her date she could meet him at 6:30. The walk to the restaurant would take a little less than 30 minutes, but Deborah had planned to go back home and change. Her makeup needed touching up, she had thought of curling her hair, and extra time would be required for walking slowly enough to avoid sweat stains. She called Arya immediately while jostling around items in her bag, searching for anything that could help. Arya, I got busy with work and didn't realize the time. I only have half an hour until my date. That leaves me no time to go home and get ready. What do I do? Have you asked him to reschedule? Maybe he can meet you later tonight. No, he probably made reservations and it's Friday. We might end up waiting in the queue forever before we could go in and eat. Deborah clicked out of all her tabs and shut her computer down. I don't know what to tell you, Deborah, Arya said. You might just need to go straight to the date. What are you wearing right now? Deborah examined her outfit below and grunted. An unflattering black suit with an old, oversized purple blouse. A bad day to dress down at work. I'll send you a photo. It's bad though. 1 second. Deborah raised her phone high in the air and twisted her arm until the outfit completely fit in the picture. Did you get it? Arya checked her messages. That's not bad. I like the top. It's too big on me. Arya didn't answer. Arya, what should I do? Deborah shuffled her papers into a stack. Well, you may not like it, but I don't think your outfit looks that bad. Take off the blazer and that will help. Throwing the blazer off, Deborah said, I should go. Thanks. Deborah, desperate to transform herself quickly, hung up the phone before hearing her friends goodbye. The blazer flew to the chair and Deborah whipped out the bottom drawer of her desk. Unorganized items clattered in the overextended wooden bin. Deborah glanced over the drawer's contents multiple times, trying to keep a keen eye with each search. Piece by piece by piece, she discovered her desired tools: mascara, an eyebrow brush, and lip gloss. She sneered at the gloss, but gathered it into her hands anyway. Although wearing it made her feel like a teenage girl, she thought it was a better choice than leaving her lips bare and looking like an old woman. Deborah fast-walked and exited the agency to go to the communal women's bathroom in the hallway. Placing her items by the sink, she snatched a paper towel sheet from the dispenser and wetted the tip. In the mirror above the counter, she watched herself as she moved the paper towel pointedly around the edges of her eyes, removing the daily smudges from eyeshadow, eyeliner, and mascara, lest she embody the beauty standards of a raccoon. The eyebrow brush did little to help the hardly visible hair above her eyelids, which were overbleached and overplucked. Deborah sighed, cursing herself for not storing an eyebrow pencil in her desk as well. Due to limited time, she stopped herself from dwelling on the imperfection and picked up her drugstore mascara. She preferred her gluten-free, cruelty-free one at home, but under these desperate measures, she accepted this low-quality resource. Once she added shine to her lips, Deborah fidgeted with her blouse, clasped the 3 items in her hands, and flew out of the bathroom. Upon opening the main door, a loud thud caused Deborah to stagger backward in the hallway. A man moaned as the door naturally swung closed and revealed the unexpected sufferer. Holding his hand to his temple, he shook his head like a dog shaking the water off after a dip in the pool. Hey, Deborah, didn't expect to see you around here, Ted said, his typical enthusiasm muffled by pain. Deborah stared. All week long, she had avoided him in an attempt to keep the work harmony in her job, and now she had injured her boss. I'm sorry, Deborah said, agonizing over her mistake. This clocked in another awkward moment with Ted, and it pushed back her ETA to the restaurant. Do you need Tylenol? I can grab some from my desk. She needed to return her makeup to the drawer, so it was convenient enough. No, I'm okay. Thank you for the offer, though. What are you still doing here? Planning to sleep over for the weekend? Deborah's neck turned red. No, I work better in silence, so I lost track of time when everyone left. The two walked into the office together, and Deborah wondered if Ted had already planned to go that way or if he was following her. Either he could read minds or faces, because he next said, Don't mind me. I just need to gather some personal things from my desk. At a risk, Deborah moved her eyesight toward Ted and noticed an unfolded cardboard box in his hand. Ted watched her observe this and mentioned, Don't worry, they didn't fire me. Oh, she said. Sorry, 1 second. Deborah dipped into her office and Ted went to his as she replaced her backup beauty items back to their space of belonging. She checked the clock and saw that, with effort, she could walk fast enough to make it on time to the restaurant and only have minimal amounts of perspiration. Zipping shut her stiff, gray pleather shoulder bag and swinging it over her shoulder, Deborah headed for the door. As she turned the corner, a face appeared and she almost collided into the only other employee still around. Gasping, she cried, Why? I'm so sorry, Deborah. I didn't see you coming out and I was just about to come in. I wanted to get a hold of you before you left. Are you okay? Deborah looked up at Ted's sincere, worry-ridden face and struggled to despise it. The poor man couldn't stop his river blue eyes from searching over her and making sure she was unharmed. She didn't have time to focus on the mistake or let him know the shock that had disrupted her functioning lungs. Instead, she continued to try and regulate her breath while assuring Ted that she felt fine. When he accepted this, Deborah gathered her senses, apologized, and turned around to leave. Ted fell into line with her. Hey, Deborah, before you go, I wanted to apologize. Deborah turned her face away so she could roll her eyes. Theodore. Ted. He laughed hesitantly. Deborah gritted her teeth. Ted, you've already apologized. I told you I'm fine. I need to get going, though. I have a... She stumbled to find the right wording. An appointment. Ted started to show signs of confusion, but retracted them, as if dismissing some disturbing thought. No, I don't mean the earlier collision. Although, again, I'm sorry about that. I wanted to apologize for earlier this week in the coffee shop line. Stopping, Deborah listened. I'm a chatty guy. I think it's important to get to know the people you work with, make them feel like their life outside of work matters. Looking back and forth, Deborah wondered how long this would take. More importantly, what would it result in? You and I talked the least in the office, but when I saw you in the lobby, I decided to change that. One last attempt. But I think I came on too strong, so I'm sorry for that. Deborah watched his eyes, and she glanced to see if she could spot perspiration, a quiver of the lips, or any other sign of malice. She saw none. He meant his apology. Thank you, Ted. Of course. Neither party moved. You said one last attempt? It's been under wraps for the past couple of weeks, but I'm getting moved to a different location in the city. They want me to help bolster the employees in Murray Hill, so I'll be leaving next week. Deborah's eyebrows shot up faster than lightning shoots to the ground. You're leaving. Don't get too excited. He winked. I still have a couple more days. I'll be telling everyone about the change next Monday, and my official goodbye will be the following day. Do you know who the replacement is? Someone named Gina Davis? I've never met her. Gina. The sun could not have shined brighter that evening for Deborah. Her next boss would be female. Straight or not, she seriously doubted she would run into any uncomfortable issues with this unknown woman. Friday may be her lucky day of the week. Well, this is good, Deborah said. I hope you enjoy your new workplace. I think I will. The two had reached the elevators, but Deborah didn't mind when Ted continued to talk. He wrung his hands and then relaxed them by his sides. The new location isn't too far from here, so I'll probably stay at my place in Brooklyn Heights. That's a good area. Yeah, once I'm no longer your boss, I'd like to go on a date with you sometime. Maybe we could play tennis or have dinner? If you're up for it, I'd appreciate the chance. Deborah perked up at tennis. Ted wouldn't be her boss anymore, but he would still be Ted. She didn't know if she liked him enough for a date. Like he had said, they hadn't talked much about things outside of work. Think about it. I'll let you get to your appointment. I'm glad I saw you, though. The sweetness of sincerity spread across Ted's face as he waved goodbye and went back to the office. Deborah left the open elevator empty and chose to walk down 10 flights of stairs, thinking over what had happened. If she kept moving, she could push the event out of mind in time for her date. She messaged Jack to let him know she would arrive a tad late, but told him to go inside and save their table for her. After an exhilarating walk, Deborah arrived 10 minutes late at the destination, Il Primo Pizzeria. She said with a perfect accent. Nothing new or exquisite, but at least her date liked authentic Italian. Deborah approached and let the host know she was with the Jack Daniels party. This caused a questioning stare, but the host brought a slow finger over the list and saw that there was indeed a Jack Daniels party, and he informed her that they had not yet seated Jack. Regardless, they seated her inside. 20 minutes later, Jack arrived and greeted her warmly with a tight hug. I'm sorry. Work kept me busy, he said, smoothing down his light blue button-up. I completely understand, Deborah said. Standing by her chair, he stared at the lights, creating a dim lighting. Everything about him appeared the same as his photos. When he put his sport jacket on the chair and sat down, he made eye contact with Deborah, grabbing her attention. You look fantastic. Should we eat? Thank you. That sounds wonderful. Jack waved a waiter over. Finally, Deborah thought, this will be good. Woo! End of chapter 10. Tune in tomorrow for chapter 11. If you liked this video, like this video. If you want to find out what happens in the following chapters, subscribe. And if you want to see other content I'm producing, you can follow me on Instagram, TikTok. The links are in this description below. And I hope you all have a good rest of your day. Thanks. Bye.